The answer to the title of this video is unfortunately very boring. We just spent a few €100 paying artists who actually knew what they were doing to make art for our game instead of learning it all ourselves from scratch. This was probably not the amazing answer you were looking for, so if you want to dip out now, that's fine. Link down below, go and play our playtest and give us some feedback if you want in the comments here or through our Discord. But if you are actually interested in what we've been working on for the past month, creating our own roguelite set in ancient Chinese mythology, then just sit back and listen to me talk a bit more about the developments. So it's been about 3.5 months now since we started development on Songs of Everjade, and looking at where we came from and where we are right now, I think we can be pretty happy with ourselves. So I'll put up some gameplay right now. This is the first devlog footage, and then this is the current devlog, or like the current footage of the state of the game. I think a lot of things have changed. First of all, the game looks completely different. I'm really happy with that one. And second of all, there's also just a lot more mechanics and a lot more reason to play the game. The game also just plays a lot better. So I want to talk a bit more about what we've been doing in the past month to get to this stage. Now, before I go and talk about the exact changes, I should talk about how we even got the feedback so we knew what we had to work on. And it is because last month we did our first playtest through Steam, and you guys very graciously, I think about 150 people, played our playtest, and a lot of people left us some very long but very constructive and really helpful feedbacks of what we were doing wrong, how the game could be improved, because that's what I love about you guys, our backseat game developers. And we have taken a lot of that feedback to heart. Some of the main things that came up were that the controls were incredibly horrible, and that there was no feedback at all in the game. So the controls, we're still kind of trying to figure that one out, but I think we've greatly improved because we used to be completely direction based. Now we actually have a cursor, like a crosshair, that can help you when playing on keyboard and mouse. And we've also been doing a lot in trying to get more feel, trying to get more impact when certain things happen, added a lot of sound effects, added some more visual effects. And I think, I may be very biased because this is my game after all, that we have made a lot of progress there. So once again, I'm not going to keep saying this the entire video, but if you haven't done so yet, if you are watching this devlog and you're like, I'm curious what these guys are actually talking about, like what are they actually making? Head down below, the Steam page is there, and you can give the playtest a go for yourself. Now, what else did we change? So I think the biggest thing I want to talk about is a mindset shift that we had. Probably this is not the first video of us that you're watching. You've seen some of our previous videos, such as, for example, the one where I basically just shit on all of the other devlog YouTubers, so I have to be really careful now to be as genuine as possible. That video was inspired by me coming to a realization that we were doing our development completely wrong. So what we did the previous two devlogs is we were like trying to learn pixel art ourselves and like focus on making the game pretty first. But a few weeks ago at this point, I suddenly realized that that was dumb because we have a very programmer heavy team and we didn't have any of our big mechanics implemented yet. We had a bad looking game and no mechanics. And you guys agreed with us. A lot of the comments were as well that like, hey, you know, the game doesn't really look good at all. Like the pixel art was not really there. The colors were whack, the resolutions were whack. And we realized that, hey, look, we should just not even bother. We are trying to make this commercial, or at least not spend like multiple years of creating videos like this about the progress. No, we actually want to ship this game early next year already. So we can't learn pixel art from scratch, which has led to a costly development of me just spending, I think at this point, like 500, 600 euros, like in the grand scheme of things, not that much money yet, on just getting sprites made, getting tiles made, getting item icons made. Anything really art-wise at this point is being done by other people, other pixel artists, and we can just focus on making the game mechanically, because that's what we're good at. We are a pretty strong mechanical team. So that has allowed us to push a lot of code, which has meant that we now have our blessing system, we have unlockables and achievements implemented, and we have heirlooms. All of these are mechanics that are really core to our gameplay, because the blessings, for example, is one of the ways of our game design that we try to encourage the player to get 100% map coverage instead of just beelining right to the boss room and then slaying the boss and going to the next stage. And if we were all gonna spend like weeks of pixel art and nothing on programming, we weren't gonna be able to make a lot of progress there. Some other things that we did that were very code heavy and that we also got feedback of was our world generations. Previously, our stages were kind of basic, I think is the best way to call it. There were just two main paths that you could take, and it was a very linear game. Whereas we wanted more of a feeling of exploration, and you had to backtrack. We even have like a sprint mechanic, so if you're not in combat for a while, you just move faster, so you're not wasting time backtracking. But the worlds didn't really fit the vibe that we wanted. Like, the environments weren't there. So we completely overhauled our world generation. This took quite a bit of time, but I think right now this means that the game is a lot more fun to play because we have randomly generated rooms, but before it didn't feel like it. Whereas now it's really like you're going into the unknown. And then because we got so many new items made, that also meant that we could implement them in our game. So we went from having a single heirloom, which is like the most important items that will very greatly influence how is your game's like run going to be. Is it going to be maybe very fast paced and like you do high damage but you take a lot of damage, or it's more of a defensive posture where you try and go slow and go a bit more calculated? We were able to implement all of these things now and not focus on the art anymore. So I really want to like share this with the audience. I don't make these devlogs to get 100,000 wish lists because I know it's not going to work. I'm just sharing these as a inspiration. Honestly, at this point, I don't really know what I want to do with these devlogs. Just sharing with you guys that, hey, I'm not just someone who sits on my chair and talks nicely about 10 principles to make your game, but we actually do our very best to make these games at a somewhat fast pace, but also not have to compromise on not having a good experience. And if that means that we have to spend some money on getting art on, but we can focus on our strengths, so be it. I don't expect these devlogs to get a lot of views or anything. I've gotten over that, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. So we've just been programming a lot. And what I've also been doing is like working a bit more on the game feel. So on sound effects is, for example, something that has hugely improved how our game is feeling from a just silent experience, or even worse, our playtest, we were using some placeholder sound effects, which were just like gun reload sounds, which in a traditional, very calm, mythological setting did not fit at all. I've been able to rework a lot of them, so the game just feels a lot more meaty, feels more impacty, because everything you do has like that little bit of sound, that little bit of swung attached to it, and it really helps a lot there. So what do we want now? Well, again, we want you to play the playtest and just give us some general feedback, but I think we're quite happy with the current progress state we're at. What we want to do in the next few weeks is finish all of those mechanics. So most of them are done already, but we now have a very big pile of bugs that we need to go through because we were just pushing code and never really validating if everything worked together well. We're gonna work through that. And then we wanna start working towards releasing a demo somewhere in the middle of January. So we'll be participating in the Steam Next Fest in February, but in January, we already wanna get a demo out so we can do some first like larger scale tests of how does the game feel. Do we have any like random bugs and like big crashes that would ruin the experience of a player who finds our game during Next Fest? And just have the core game done. And what I mean by having the core game done is that there shouldn't be any big pieces of code written anymore, because that's like our forte. My goal for next month basically is to reach a stage where all I have to do is talk to artists, commission art pieces, and then like implement them in the game, but there's no big pieces of code anymore. Of course, if we add a new enemy or we add a new boss, that's gonna require some code, but it's going to be nothing brand spanking new. It's going to be stuff that we've already kind of done before, and we just have to expand upon it. I know our first devlog, we were very optimistic. We wanted to launch the 29th of February. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think the reason for that is not because the mechanics won't be done. It's more because there's so much art we need to do. And you know, an artist can only work so much because we want to have like the same artist. So we have consistent styles in our characters or in our tiles or in our items. So we have 3 main artists that we're working with. That just needs time, and I'm fine with that. But I still think that we had a pretty good planning overall. Like I said, most of the main mechanics are in there now. We just need more enemies, we need more bosses, we need more items, we need more lore. Everything we have right now, we just need more of it. We had a similar thing with Forge Industries, so I know right now how it works. It's kind of grindy, it's kind of boring. I don't know if we're gonna do devlogs next month, but it's part of game development. I just wanted to share this devlog as an update. We're still working on our game. If this sounds interesting to you, you can wishlist it. I don't care. You're probably not the audience for it. I just wanted to share how are we doing our development. Anyways, that's all I really had to say. If you want to support us, we got a Patreon tier where we do weekly updates as well and a bonus playtest round just all about this game, so you can support us a little bit and you get to know more about the game if this is something that interests you. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!